FM and 700 AM. This is your host, Zarisha Kuchimanchi. I'm really excited that you're here. It's a beautiful Saturday evening out. I'm a former tech exec. I host the podcast Women, Career and Life, and I'm a working mom. You can check out my podcast on any of the podcast platforms, Spotify included. It's in the top 30% of podcasts, and I share stories and advice for you to achieve your career and life goals. If you've been tuning into the show since March, we've been having guests, and I'm really excited to have our guest today, Lekhana Reddy. She's here to talk about storytelling with data and the passion around it that she has. Lekhana, welcome. So Lekhana, just to give you a little bit about her, she is pivoted into data analytics. She is an educator in the sense she has taken to social media to really talk about data and helping enable others to get into the data space. She has 108,000 followers on Instagram and 10,000 on LinkedIn, and this is no mean feat. For any of you who are content creators, you know how hard this is to do and how much work it takes to put it together. So Lekhana, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know how you got into this?
Sure. Hello everyone. Firstly, thank you Sirisha for having me here and for that beautiful introduction. So yes, I am currently a senior data governance analyst. I've been in this space for over 5 years. And one of the things that when I initially started was that I found that not many women specifically are out there like teaching and educating other data professionals. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to take a step. And 2 years ago, started on Instagram, sharing my experience in the data world. And it's been like a wonderful journey so far, and I love educating, especially women. I really want to see more women in the data space, and that's been my focus.
You said it very well, because so much of STEM, when you look at it, women are not getting into STEM careers, but where the money is in such a way, those are the careers you make the most money. So think of all the top end companies, right? How many of them are tech companies? So you really need more women to do it. And I think what you're helping them with is really also able to pivot, even if they didn't start in that space. How do they upskill, giving it in like little bite-sized pieces? I've been watching some of your videos. They're pretty cool. I like the ones in the kitchen where you're cooking up, like fun and having things to do. So getting people to engage so it's not a dry subject and they're like kind of dreading it. So how do you, let's talk about your social media presence, and then we'll dive into what is data analytics, and because it's a buzzword we hear about. So what is it when you're doing your social media? What are you thinking about?
I'm a very creative person and also a very analytical person as well. So I think I try to be as creative as possible, because data is a very boring subject, right?
Yes.
So I try to make it as creative as possible, especially through videos, or even just like content on LinkedIn. I try to keep it as easy and as fundamental, like the cooking thing that you were mentioning. So I try to make it as real, like world per se, and keep it more fun and interactive. And also another thing that goes with social media, as you know, is again how well we collaborate with others and how well we engage with the audience.
Very true. And for anyone who's a content creator, you can call into the studio lines in a bit. We would like to know, it's so much work. I mean, you've grown so fast because you've put in a ton of work into it. Yes, you're collaborating, but even just your content is very amazing. And you can see the evolution and progress as we all are growing on it and engaging. And I saw some of the comments that you're getting. People are learning how to use data. As you said, it can be quite a dry subject, but really thinking about the impact you're having. So one of the people who called out, when one of my friends saw that I was going to have this interview, and she's in India, by the way, Aruna. So one of her teammates actually has been following your blog post, was very interested in learning. Companies nowadays are collecting tons of data. What is it? Gigabytes, terabytes? I don't even know what byte size we are in. And how do we collect the right set of data? And then the art of storytelling. To your point, as such a dry subject, everything is stories. That's the stuff that sticks with us. For anyone who's even presenting or talking about other things, even at a work meeting, storytelling is so critical. So what is it that they can do and how do they do that? And I think we have a couple of callers calling in. We're just going to start taking calls in a few minutes. So as soon as Lekhana finishes up.
Yeah. Firstly, thank you, Aruna, for following me and reading my blog post. I greatly appreciate and support. Like, I really very grateful for all the support that I received. So, firstly, to talk about the storytelling aspect of data, right? One of the things in like getting the right quality of data, it all starts with understanding the business problem. So if you're solving a problem, like for example, I think the latest that I can think about is COVID, right? Mm-hmm. So understanding what problem you're trying to solve and niching down as much as possible to understand what kind of data we need, right? There's so much data produced today, but not all data is really useful. We need to take out all the gibberish data and get the right data to actually, so even to get the right data, you need to have that good understanding of the business problem to solve it. And when it comes to storytelling, it's all about how well you understand the business problem and how you are giving your analysis to the stakeholders. So it's all about that. So again, it all boils down to understanding the business problem and the problem that you're trying to solve.
You hit the nail on the head, because I think often we get lost. I see, this is a story I remember, right? When I was a kid, and probably many people who are in that time will remember, is we had a dearth of information. We didn't have enough information, libraries were hard to come by. There was no internet then. For anyone listening, there was a time there was no smartphone and internet. So we had to go figure out from books. Now it's the flip side. There's like so much information, not all of it is accurate, and a bunch of junk as well that comes through. And really defining your problem statement and niching it down, you have to know exactly what question you're asking. And this is true even at work, because I worked in tech, and when we would try root cause or problem solving anything, the first question, if you really started to think about it, is what problem are you trying to solve? Because otherwise you can come up with immense theories and never find the right solution. And answering that, and storytelling is the things that stick with you. And if I was to think back on my days at work, when colleagues or others presented, it's the stories that somebody mentioned, those were the only things that stuck, not the data and the things. So like having a tagline or something that like sparks an emotion in us is kind of what sticks, right? Even though we might be working in hardcore tech or something, right, it does have an impact. Everything is a product or a service that touches somebody's life in a different way. So putting that perspective on it is always a good idea. So let's go back to the basics. What is data analytics? It's a buzzword, and I'm sure there are a lot of people wondering what it is that they keep seeing. So what does it actually mean when you say data analytics?
Sure. So you can think of data analysis like pretty much everyone these days have an iPhone or an Android. So if you just go to the usage metrics, right, tab, and you can find so many metrics there. Like you can see how much screen time you've used, or like in which particular app, how much time you've spent. All that is data analysis. That is like the most basic thing. Like, so are you someone who likes to read that? You're trying to understand, okay, in this app I've spent this much time. Okay, on this app I've spent this much time. So how much should I reduce time on each app? So that is a basic analysis that you do.
Yeah.
So all that is data analysis. So if you're using any social media, Instagram, like literally if your account is public, you'll be able to see again an analysis dashboard there. So all this is data analysis. That's best example that I could give for anyone who's curious to know what data analysis is.
Yeah, and we're opening up the phone lines. You can call us at 214-817-3333. The number again is 214-817-3333. Feel free to call in, ask Lekhana about data analytics, storytelling, her social media, how she's growing it, or anything related to those topics that we can tune in and get her insight in as well. So when you're thinking of what is the questions that you get from most people when they're trying to pivot? What is the things that they really enjoy, and what is that they struggle with, and how do you kind of make it transition somewhat simpler?
Sure, yeah. So one of the most, like, I think basic questions that everyone, like, who's trying to transition asks, like, okay, what course should I take? Okay, I've already taken this course. Am I doing a mistake? So these are some of the most common asked questions, and I always go back and say, like, first figure out, are you a problem solver, right? Like, not everyone like to problem solve, right? Because so I've personally mentored folks who are gone so deep into like data science and stuff, paid, like, I don't know, thousands of dollars on these huge boot camp programs, and then they figure out that, okay, I don't want to do this, I don't like doing this. So the first step that I always suggest is find out if you're a problem solver. Do you love solving problems? Like, there are so many apps and games where you can figure out and see, you can, if you really like to problem solve. And then if that is the case, then I would say probably maybe just take a Udemy or a Coursera course, and then see, just dive into data science and data analytics and see if that's something that you really like doing, and then take the next step of boot camps or any programs that you're interested in.
And how did you get into this space? Like, what made you transition? Like, where is your background and what made you switch to this field?
Sure. Yeah, so my background, I started actually, I also transitioned to data analytics. I did my MBA, and then I started, volunteering for a nonprofit where I used to help them do like all these social media analytics and stuff. That's when I was like, first time I came across analytics, and yeah, just fell in love with it, and I was like, okay, this is something that I really want to do, and went on to like do my master's in data analytics, and yeah, here I am. So
very nice. By the way, if you're tuning in, this is Life Beats with Sirisha. The studio line is open. It's 214-817-3333. The number again is 214-817-3333. I'm interviewing Lekhana Reddy. She is a master of storytelling with data. That's actually her Instagram and LinkedIn profile. She has over 100,000 followers on Insta and over 10K in LinkedIn. And she's been doing this for actually fairly a short time. I would say a year and a half, 2 years. And she's really grown into this woman who's driving this direction and enabling people to pivot and switch to data. And the way she processes and consumes and basically creates the content, I think makes it easy for people to understand and see themselves doing this. And she also highlights how to make the transition. And if you were just tuned in a few minutes ago, you could hear telling, you really like to problem solve. Otherwise, data analytics may be not for you. It's fun to look at your social media, look at the analytics, but if you don't like it, then maybe that's not your cup of tea. So she's trying to make it easy for you to determine if this is the path you want to go in. So if you're tuning in, this is Life Beats with Sirisha. I'm Sirisha Kuchimanchi, your host. I also host a podcast, Women, Career and Life. Thanks for tuning in. And once more, the phone lines are open, 214-817-3333. So from your standpoint, what are some of the unique experiences people have? Like, what are some positive stories that have done beyond just them learning the data analytics, but what stories have you heard and how it's transformed their journey?
Yeah, I think one of the things is actually one of the beauty of being in data is mostly I would say like it encompasses a lot of different fields. Like I've seen personally nurses who become data analysts. I have seen even medical like doctors who want to like learn about data analytics, and I think that is the beauty of being in data. Like there's no limit like who can become a data analyst or a data scientist, because anything literally you can analyze, and anything literally you can build some sort of metrics out of it. So I think to your question, I would say that is one of the beauty of being in this field.
So when you say the nurses and doctors kind of switch, do they give up their profession and become data analysts, or do they keep a foot here and a foot there? I guess that's what I'm curious. When people pivot, do they like give up what they originally did, or somehow they're able to figure out a way to mesh the two interests?
Yeah, so I have seen doctors who mash the two together because they're trying to understand now, since a lot of these, especially medical field, is using a lot of analytics per se, so they want to understand what exactly goes behind these analysis. So that's when the doctors mash the two together and try to understand what's going on, and that's actually very important in medical field as well.
Yeah, so let's talk about COVID. That's kind of what you started with as a problem statement, right? It's something that all of us have experienced globally, and there was a ton of data. There was a dearth of data as well when it was going through, and there was a ton of data. So what can we do to think about data analytics? Like, what did COVID highlight from the data, and what did we learn from it?
So I think like you must have noticed that like iPhone released this feature where it shows you nearby who has COVID or something like that. So each state had that, right? So and you had to enable it. So that was a piece of data for Apple to like help analyze how many people in this area are affected. So that is where the data analysis comes in, right? Now in this area there are so many people who are affected with the COVID, and that can help us to like at least like that okay, at this distance there is someone who has been affected. So that is the one data point or data analysis where it could help us, and like after that probably even understanding how many in each area or state have been affected. So I think like for that particular case, I think this is where the data analysis piece would come in.
And how do people, like, so say people take this, what kind of, you're giving them some basic information, right? Do people in data analytics need like a degree to find a job, and what sort of jobs do they get into? And I'm sure your presence is global, so what do you see as sort of the global presence differently in each country, and what does that requirement look like, and what sort of jobs does it relate to?
So as far as like needing like a degree for data, I don't think you do need a degree.
Okay, that's fantastic. Yeah, that makes it so much simpler then.
Yeah. So I've personally seen like my colleagues in my previous work where they didn't have any degree, but they just had like passion for being in data and like understanding what's going on. So but again, it's a lot of work if you don't have a degree. That would be a different scenario where you'll have to spend a lot more time to understanding data, and especially SQL is one of the things that any data professional would need. So they would need to have some good SQL skills, and that's one of the major things as far as the degree is concerned. And as far as the code, was that the question that you asked?
Yes, and what other, like, I think I see Python and other things, so what other skills do they need, and what sort of, because you said it's, in every industry, in every place that data has, what sort of jobs do they get, and what does that look like? Because we started talking about STEM and women and having less people in data, so it's kind of circling back to that.
Right.
What does that look like for them?
Yeah, so actually data science and data analytics are two different things, right? So for a data analyst, your options are much wider. Like wider in the sense, you can become even marketing analyst, financial analyst. So there are different analysts for different kind of domains, like healthcare analysts. So there are different domains that you can get into if you're into analytics, whereas data science is more focused on data science, machine learning, AI, and those kind of stuff. So actually there's always like different companies also like talk differently about data science and data analytics. So that's where the difference comes in. But I always suggest that if anyone's trying to transition to data, always try to get your foot into analytics and then jump into data science.
Hey, I've become a huge fan of ChatGPT. I've been using it for the last 3 weeks just to play around, not to generate content as much as looking at how to reword things and stuff. It's been mind-boggling to see, right? The first time I tried using it, it was a bit challenging. So, have you tried using ChatGPT?
Yes. I love it.
What do you use it for?
So I usually use it for like if I'm doing some like pet projects. I just use it for code. I use it for even writing, like rewriting, all my stuff like content. Yeah, it's just been my great like helper, like a personal assistant.
Yeah, actually, and in all transparency here, if you see I've started to use this, and this is what I started with the first one. is when I put the title, I come up with the title, but I use ChatGPT to see if it comes up with a better
Yes.
phrasing of how I'm going to use the title for this radio show when I have the guests come in. And you know, it's great to see, I mean, this person or this being. And for those of you who may not know, the CTO behind ChatGPT is a lady who actually started as a mechanical engineer and has moved into this. So Meera Maruthi, and it's so amazing to see that. And I wish there would be more focus. I know open AI is a humongous field and there are a lot of people working on it. But since we're talking about women and STEM, you know, it's great to see these role models, of which you are one, because that's what people are seeing, to have them as role models for people to say, hey, I can do this, because not everyone has access. You know, some of us have access and opportunities, but if you don't have, that's where internet and social media comes in. The positive is it gives people the opportunity to see others like themselves and get knowledge in this case, right? For not paying anything, because that becomes also a limiting factor. And what is some of the transformation? So what kind of, give me some insights into what people have reached out and told you about, hey, I learned this from you, Lekhana. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that usually people tell me is like, especially the content, like how I kind of break it down to understand it easily. And I think that has been something that people have told me about and said that, you know what, especially there was one reel where I kind of broke down the different types of data or something. So the way, like the breakdown of it was very easy to understand, and I was really I'm really grateful for that. And also there were a couple of things where, you know, not usually, like I see a lot of women these days who have been doing data science content, but what I see the gap is not many women dive into the technical concepts. And I feel that, you know, any woman, anyone who's watching this today, I really want more women to come and talk about technical stuff, and I think that's something that I really want to see happen.
Yeah, I think that's the only way, right? We all have the access, we all can do it. It's just the more of us we do it. And I'm a techie, so those of you watching, listening, I'm a tech exec. I come from a physics and an engineering background, having done all of that work. And it is very important to see those role models. I think when you're already doing it and you've had access, you don't think about it, because that was my situation. But the more you talk to people, I have high school children. So, you know, when I meet even girls in their age group or middle school kids, even them, they're starting to question, should I go into STEM? Am I good enough? And it always, to be honest, surprises and incredibly shocks me. Because I'm thinking, you're going to these schools. I live in Allen. So you're going to these schools which have a lot of, you know, sort of access and people who are in that field. For you to doubt yourself, it just makes you question. So we have to do our part. I think Lekhana is exactly on point. You know, for us to open those doors and be more frank, we will all make mistakes. We will all learn. So giving others the understanding that it's okay. It's okay if you fail. It'll be fine. And I know everyone's listening to this podcast, but we are also talking to the young women and girls who might need a little bit more insight into what else they can do. So we have about a minute and a half. If anyone wants to call in on the phone line, 214-817-3333. Lekhana, why don't you tell us how people can reach you?
Sure, yeah, you can follow me on Storytelling by Data on Instagram, or we have a YouTube channel where you can follow me on Storytelling by Data. Or you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name is Lekhana Reddy. So, yeah.
And if you don't know, Lekhana actually does a LinkedIn Live on Saturday mornings. I see her, you know, typing in, and that's perseverance, to wake up on Saturday morning to do this, you know, regularly as she's getting people to do it. I'm also going to let you know, if you are interested in looking at women in leadership, you can tune in and listen to my podcast. It's Women, Career and Life. It's spelled WOMENCAREER and Life. You can find it on any podcast platform. I do want to thank Lekhana for being here today. It's been wonderful. And is there anything we missed that you would like to share about data analytics, or we've got it all covered for the most part?
Yeah, I think one last thing that I would like part with is I really want more women to be in this field. So if you are a data professional watching this, go ahead, create that content and share it with the world. Yes,
Yes, perfect ending. And next week we will be actually supporting the US India Chamber of Commerce at the hockey game, so there is no show. And this show is moving to Thursdays at 2 p.m. from April. So see you in April on Thursdays at 2.
K281CS, Lucas, McKinney, 104.1 FM.